Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're tackling something that I know hits home for so many entrepreneurs out there. We're going to talk about how to stop being a prisoner in the business you built and start turning it into a true asset, one that can grow and thrive even when you're not there. This is your blueprint for real business independence.
So let's just dive right in with a question that gets to the very heart of it. Be honest with yourself. Do you own a business, or have you accidentally created a high-stress, high-pressure job for yourself? I mean, if the idea of taking a month-long, completely unplugged vacation makes you break out in a cold sweat, well, you might have your answer.
You know, this feeling is so common that it's been given a name, the gilded cage. And it's the perfect description, right? It looks shiny and successful from the outside, but on the inside, you're trapped. You built the cage, and now you're stuck in it. This is what we call the owner's trap.
So what is this trap really? Well, it's this sneaky belief that being the most important person in your company, the one with all the answers, is a good thing. But in reality, when you're the hero who has to solve every single problem, you become the single biggest bottleneck holding your business back. Let's dig into why that is.
A lot of the time, the problem comes down to this really fundamental difference. Are you operating as a self-employed person, where you're basically trading your hours for dollars? If you stop working, the money stops coming in. Or are you a true business owner? Someone who's working on the business, building systems and processes that make money whether you're at your desk or on a beach.
So how do you know for sure if you're stuck in this trap? Well, here are some of the classic warning signs. Does everything grind to a halt the second you take a day off? Have you hit a growth ceiling because, let's face it, there are only so many hours in a day? Or maybe your biggest clients refuse to talk to anyone but you. If any of that sounds painfully familiar, it's a huge sign that your business depends way too much on you.
Okay, let's talk about why this is such a big deal, because it goes way beyond just wanting to take a real vacation. Being the center of your company's universe has a very real and often totally hidden financial cost. It directly torpedoes the value of the very asset you're working so hard to build.
Think about it from a buyer's perspective. If someone were to look at buying your company and they see that it completely relies on you, that's a massive red flag. That's a huge risk for them. And guess what? They are going to price that risk directly into their offer, which means you get less money. Your indispensability is literally making your company less valuable.
And this isn't just a theory. We've got the hard data to prove it. Now, don't get thrown off by the term EBITDA. It's just a fancy way of measuring a company's core profit. But look at these numbers. If you're the key man, the hero we talked about, your business might only be worth 2 or 3 times its annual profit. But as you step back, as the business learns to run without you, look at how that valuation multiple jumps up. It's dramatic.
And this is the number that should really get you excited. A truly independent business, one that runs on systems, not on you. Well, it can command a valuation of 5, 6, or even 7 times its earnings, sometimes even higher. You could literally double the value of your business, not by working harder, but by working smarter to design yourself out of the day-to-day.
So that's the problem, and that's the potential reward. Now for the most important part, the solution. How do you actually do this? How do you escape the trap and build a more valuable company? Well, the entire secret lies in shifting from being owner-dependent to being systems-dependent.
And the hero of this entire transformation is the Standard Operating Procedure, or what we call an SOP. Seriously, don't let the boring name fool you. An SOP is just your company's playbook. It's how you take all that genius that's stuck in your head and make it so anyone on your team can get the same great results. A great place to start is with your most critical processes, like how you bring on a new client or how you send out invoices.
Now, when I say SOP, please do not picture a giant, dusty binder sitting on a shelf that no one's looked at since 1998. That's the old way of thinking. In today's world, that's totally useless. Your playbook needs to be digital, accessible, and actually part of how your team works every day.
This quote right here, this is everything. It's the whole mindset shift you need to make. Your job is not to be the person everyone runs to for answers. Your job is to build great systems that empower your people to find the answers and do their jobs brilliantly, without you.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds great, but creating a whole playbook sounds like a ton of work. And you know what? For years, it was. It was a massive, daunting project. But here's the good news. New technology, especially AI, is completely changing the game.
Oh man, just looking at this list is painful. This is why nobody ever got around to it. The old way was just agonizingly slow. You'd have to do the task, stop, screenshot, write a description, paste it in a document. It could take hours to document one simple process. It was just soul-crushing.
But what if you could just skip all of that? What if you could create a beautiful, visual, step-by-step guide in just a few minutes, just by doing your work like you normally do?
Well, that's exactly what AI-powered tools do now. It's like having a little robot assistant looking over your shoulder. You just do a task and it automatically captures every click, every screenshot, and instantly turns it all into a perfect shareable guide. It turns hours of boring work into just a couple of minutes. It's an absolute game changer.
So let's fast forward. You've done the work. You've built your playbook. You've created a systems-driven business. What's the real ultimate payoff? It's not just about less stress. It's about creating choices for your future. It's about true freedom.
I love this quote. Once your business can run without you, it's no longer just a job that gives you an income. It is officially transformed into a valuable, sellable asset. It's an investment that can pay you a life-changing amount of money when you decide it's time to sell or move on.
This right here, this is the true definition of freedom for an entrepreneur. It gives you options. You are now in the driver's seat. You get to decide what happens next. You can sell for that incredible premium valuation, or you can scale the company to new heights because you finally have the foundation to support it. You could even decide to step back and become a passive owner. The choice is finally yours. Ultimately, what this whole thing is about is being intentional. It's about designing a business that serves your life, not the other way around. It's about finally getting the freedom and flexibility that probably made you want to start a business in the first place.
So we'll end right where we started with that same question. After everything we've talked about today, what are you really building? And here's my challenge to you. What's the very first small system that you can document this week to start your journey toward real freedom? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're going to tackle first.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's going to make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
So, let me ask you a question. What does real financial freedom, real security, actually look like to you? For like generations, the answer was always the same. Build one massive, towering business. Go all in. But here's the thing. That model, it's fundamentally fragile. So today, we're going to explore a completely different strategy. One that isn't focused on a single point of failure, but on building a resilient portfolio for true, lasting freedom.
Man, I love this quote. It just nails the entire idea we're talking about today. It's this massive shift in thinking, right? We're moving away from trying to build these high-risk, all-or-nothing empires, and instead we're focusing on cultivating a life-sustaining orchard. So let's really break down what that means. And to do that, we got to start with the old model. All right, first up, let's talk about the old playbook. I like to call this the fragile oak tree approach. This is the classic story we've all seen in movies, right? You go all in on one huge idea. You chase that massive venture capital funding and you shoot for that billion-dollar exit. And don't get me wrong, it's impressive. It's powerful. It's like a single majestic oak tree. But if that one tree gets struck by lightning, well, it's all over. And look, this isn't just a nice little metaphor. This number right here, this is the stark reality. Data from thousands and thousands of indie startups shows that over half, a full 50%, reported making $0. Zilch. Not a penny in monthly recurring revenue. That right there is the risk of the single oak tree strategy laid bare. It is a super high stakes bet where, honestly, the odds are just not in your favor.
So if that's the problem, what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the good stuff, the resilient orchard strategy. Instead of betting everything on one giant tree, you cultivate a whole portfolio of smaller, independent, cash-flowing businesses. Just think of each one as a different kind of fruit tree in your orchard, each one contributing to the overall harvest. This right here perfectly breaks down the two approaches. On the left, you've got the oak. It's high risk, it's a single point of failure, it's all about that massive home run. But over on the right, you have the orchard. Here, you're diversifying that risk, you're building something that's resilient, because if one of your apple trees has a bad season, who cares? The pear trees and the cherry trees are still producing. Your whole focus shifts from some imaginary future valuation to proven, real, immediate cash flow.
And I want to be super clear, this isn't just about playing defense. This portfolio approach has some incredible offensive advantages. I mean, yeah, you diversify your income and your risk, of course, but you also get something called compounding learning, which you master building one business makes you exponentially better at building the next one. You get more shots on goal, which is just plain smarter. And then the real magic happens. Eventually, you can create synergy, where your different businesses actually start helping each other grow.
Now, making this shift in strategy requires a really important shift in your identity. You have to stop thinking of yourself as just an entrepreneur working in a single business. You become something so much more powerful. Your new title is Resource Allocator. You're basically the general partner of your own personal investment fund, deciding where to deploy your most valuable assets, your time, your capital, and your attention for the best possible return across your entire portfolio.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually start planting these trees? So let's get practical. Let's talk about the how. The method, which was really popularized by the entrepreneur Daniel Vassallo, is called the portfolio of small bets. The core idea here is so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Instead of committing years of your life to one big, unproven idea, you run a series of small, low-cost experiments. You give yourself a deadline, maybe a week, maybe a month, to see if an idea has any potential at all. You're not looking to hit a home run on the first swing, you're just looking for a tiny signal, a little bit of traction, a sign that it might be worth investing more. This is brilliant because it limits your downside on every single bet you make. And you know what? Today, we have a secret weapon to help us run these experiments: AI. There's this great academic framework that breaks down the whole solo founder journey into 3 stages, and AI can help with all of them. First, there's imagination shaping, where AI helps you take your vague ideas and make them concrete. Second is reality testing, where AI can help you automate building prototypes and even talking to customers. And finally, there's reality scaling, where AI helps you build repeatable systems for the ideas that actually work.
And this diagram here, this maps that whole journey out visually. You could see the flow, right? From just shaping an idea, to designing and running your experiments, and finally to systematizing what works. And check out the bottom here. Notice the specific roles AI can play. It can be your ideation co-pilot, your experimentation assistant, or even your automation orchestrator. It's essentially your own digital co-founder, working for you 24/7.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. Your orchard is starting to grow. You have a few successful businesses now. That's incredible. But now you need a way to protect and structure them properly. This is where a more sophisticated tool comes into play: the holding company. Think of it like a strong basket that holds all your different fruits without letting one bad apple spoil the whole bunch.
Now, don't let the term holding company intimidate you. It sounds super corporate, but it's really simple. A holding company, or a holdco, is just a parent company. It doesn't actually make or sell anything itself. Its only job is to own your other businesses. Those other businesses are called subsidiaries. So each one of your small bets that turns into a real business can become its own little subsidiary, sitting safely under the umbrella of your main holdco.
So why even bother with all this? Well, the benefits are immense. First, and this is the big one, liability protection. If one of your businesses gets into legal trouble or has debts, it can't affect your other businesses or the parent company. It's a firewall. You also can get significant tax efficiencies and much better cash flow, since you can move money between your companies more easily. And trust me, when it's time to sell one of your businesses down the road, this structure makes it so much cleaner.
So we've covered the strategy, the orchard, and we've covered the structure of the holding company. Now it's time for the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle: a mindset shift about what freedom really means in the modern world. This is all about evolving beyond some of the outdated fantasies we have about personal sovereignty.
So back in the 90s, this super popular idea came out called the sovereign individual. The whole theory was that technology, the internet, and crypto would let the smartest people basically escape the state. They could become customers of governments instead of citizens, just hopping between countries to minimize taxes and regulations. It was this dream of finding freedom by basically escaping and becoming invisible.
But reality turned out to be a little different, didn't it? Governments adapted. Global financial reporting became way more transparent. The new reality is that true freedom doesn't come from hiding. It comes from being a compliant, visible operator. This is someone who builds a resilient life through skilled navigation and transparency, not by trying to constantly outrun the system.
And this slide really shows you that evolution in thinking.
The whole sovereign individual idea was about escape, which creates constant friction. It's an adversarial approach. The compliant visible operator, on the other hand, is all about skillful navigation. By being transparent, you actually reduce friction, which allows you to be way more strategic. You're not fighting the weather, you're just building a ship that can sail in any condition.
And this quote right here, this just redefines freedom for the modern world perfectly. It says that real freedom is actually much simpler. It's the ability to walk away from situations you don't like. A bad job, a bad client, whatever. Not because you've somehow evaded the system, but because you've built a life where you're not dependent on any single system. That is real power. That is real freedom.
And that brings us to the final, crucial question you really need to ask yourself. Are you going to keep building that single, fragile oak tree? I get it, it's tempting, but we've seen the risks. Or are you going to patiently cultivate a resilient, life-sustaining orchard? Because that choice ultimately is going to determine the kind of freedom you're actually building for yourself. So let me know in the comments, what's the first step you're going to take after watching this? I'd love to hear from you.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's going to make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Violet Vault. Let's jump right in. What if I told you that the smartest way to build a business today isn't to build it to last forever, but to build it to sell from the very first day? I know, it sounds a little backwards, right? But stick with me, because this is about engineering your single greatest financial win. I want to kick things off with this quote, because it just cuts right to the chase. The old school way of thinking, where the founder is the hero, the genius, the one person who knows everything, that ego trip is the very thing that traps you and completely tanks your company's value when it's time to sell. To build real, lasting wealth, you have to, believe it or not, make yourself irrelevant. And this leads us to this really cool concept, becoming a ghost founder. Think about it. This is the entrepreneur who has built such a rock-solid, system-driven machine that the business just hums along, growing and making money, whether they show up or not. They haven't built a high-stress job for themselves. They've built a product, and that product is the business itself. That's the kind of thing buyers line up around the block for. So, what's stopping most business owners from reaching that ghost founder level? Well, it usually comes down to one single critical flaw. One that most people don't even spot until it's way too late. Let's unpack exactly what that is. Here it is. When a potential buyer is kicking the tires on your business, their biggest fear isn't your competition, it's not the economy, it's you. Yeah, you. If you're the one holding all the key client relationships, if you're the only one who knows how to do certain things, if all the secret sauce is just stored in your brain, you're not actually selling them a business. You're trying to sell them a very demanding, high-stress job. And trust me, nobody wants to buy a job. And you can see the difference so clearly here, right? It's how a buyer's brain works. On the left, you've got the business that needs the founder for everything. A buyer looks at that and just sees risk. They're thinking, man, what happens when this person leaves? The whole thing could fall apart. But on the right, you have a transferable asset. It's like a plug-and-play cash machine. It's predictable, it's scalable, it's low risk. Now, which one do you think is going to get the crazy high offer? It's a no-brainer. And these are the big red flags that make buyers run for the hills, or at the very least, slash their offer price. Number one, of course, is you being essential. But look at the others. Having one customer make up, say, more than a third of your income, that's super risky. Or having no documented systems, all that tribal knowledge, that's the stuff that's just in your head or your team's heads. To a buyer, if it's not written down in a process they can follow, it might as well not exist. The takeaway is simple. The thing you're most proud of, your personal involvement, can easily become your biggest liability. Okay, so if making yourself less essential is the goal, how does that actually translate into dollars and cents? Well, it all comes down to a really simple but incredibly powerful formula that determines what your business is actually worth. Here it is. So simple, right? Value equals earnings times a multiple. The E is pretty straightforward. It's how much profit your business is making. But the M, the multiple, that's the magic number. That's a reflection of the quality, the stability, and the transferability of those earnings. Now that E for earnings is usually measured by a term called EBITDA. Okay, don't let the alphabet soup scare you off. All it is a standard way to look at the pure, raw profit a business spits out, before things like taxes and interest payments get in the way. Just think of it as the core horsepower of your company's engine. But here's a crucial step that a lot of people miss. To get the real number a buyer cares about, you have to normalize your EBITDA. This just means you add back any personal expenses you might be running through the company. You know, that car lease you expense, that family cell phone plan. You add those costs back into the profit because a new owner won't have those expenses. It gives them a clean, honest picture of the true profit they're about to buy. So while profit is obviously super important, the M, the multiple, that's where you create life-changing wealth. This number is a direct reflection of risk. A business that is totally dependent on its founder might get a multiple of, say, 2. But a business built by a ghost founder, one that runs itself, that can get a multiple of 6, 7, or even higher. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's absolutely staggering. Let's say your business makes a solid $500,000 in profit. If you're running it the traditional way, totally dependent on you, you might sell for a 2x multiple. That's $1 million payday. Hey, not bad at all. But by building it as a transferable asset, you could get a 6x multiple. That's a check for $3 million. Same business, same profit, but an extra $2 million in your pocket. That is the power of focusing on that M. All right, so you're probably thinking, okay, I'm sold. This sounds amazing, but how in the world do I actually do it? How do I go from being the hero to being the ghost? Well, it doesn't happen by magic, but you absolutely can engineer it with a focused 12-month plan. We're going to break it down into 3 simple phases, and each one has a really clear goal. First, we figure out exactly where you are right now. Second, we go on a mission to systematically hunt down and eliminate every bit of risk we can find. And third, we wrap it all up in a compelling story that a buyer simply can't say no to. So in those first 3 months, it's time to get brutally honest with yourself. Go get a real professional valuation, not just what you feel your business is worth. Figure out your personal goals. How much money do you actually need from the sale? And most importantly, get your financial house in perfect order. A 13-week cash forecast isn't just a spreadsheet, it's a signal to a buyer that you run a tight, predictable, professional ship. Now for phase 2, de-risking the business. And this is my absolute favorite tool for this. I call it the 4-week holiday test. It's a thought experiment. Imagine you disappear for a month. No phone, no email. Total radio silence. What breaks? Seriously, would new customers get signed? Would your employees get paid? Would the bills get paid? Every single thing that you think would go wrong, that right there, that becomes your to-do list for the next 6 months. And finally, in the home stretch, it's all about building your narrative. See, buyers aren't just buying your past performance, they're paying for your future. They're looking for what you might call repeatable profit with receipts. This is where you show them the playbook, your standard operating procedures, the hard data that proves you have recurring revenue, and a perfectly clean and organized data room that makes it incredibly easy for them to do their homework and say yes. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work in the messy real world? Absolutely. Let me tell you a quick story about a business owner who did exactly this, and it totally changed his life. So meet John. He had a really successful construction company, but he was the company. Every big decision, every major client relationship, it all ran through him. He was tired, he was burned out, and he wanted out. But he felt trapped. If he left, the whole thing would just fall apart. So his advisors came up with this really clever strategy. Basically, they created a new company that would be run by his most talented employee, a guy named William. The plan was that over 5 years, as the new company grew and hit its targets, ownership would slowly and methodically transfer over to William. This allowed John to get his $20 million payout bit by bit, all while he was teaching William the ropes and making himself redundant. And the result? It was incredible. A total win-win-win. William stepped up and became the new owner, totally energized and ready to go. John got his full $20 million payout and the retirement he had always dreamed of. And the business? Freed from its dependency on just one guy, it didn't just survive, it thrived. It actually tripled in size to over $300 million under William's leadership. So what's the big lesson here? This didn't happen by accident. It took time, and it took a very deliberate plan. John spent 5 years systematically turning his high-stress job into a highly valuable, sellable asset. He engineered his exit, and the payoff was just massive for everyone. His story is perfect proof that this isn't just a theory, it's a real, practical path to freedom. And so that leaves us with one last big question that I want you to think about. Take a hard look at your own business right now. Are you just building a really demanding career for yourself, one that ends the day you decide to stop working? Or are you strategically, intentionally building an asset that will one day pay for your freedom? The choice, my friends, is entirely up to you. So let me know in the comments, what's one thing you could do this week to make your business just a little less dependent on you? I'd love to hear your ideas. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for spending time with us here at the Violet Vault. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay focused and keep growing.